You're watching San Francisco Rising with Chris Manners. Today's special guest is Sarah Phillips.
Hi, I'm Chris Manners, and you're watching San Francisco Rising, the show that's about restarting, rebuilding, and reimagining our city. Our guest today is Sarah Phillips. She's the Executive Director of the Office of Economic and Workforce Development for the City and County of San Francisco. Ms. Phillips, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm glad you could be here. So let's start off by talking about the city's economic plan and specifically the mayor's roadmap to San Francisco's future. Could you just give us sort of a brief overview and then, update us on progress?
Absolutely. So in February 2023, prior to my joining Mayor Breed's administration, Mayor Breed released the roadmap to San Francisco's future, and that was comprised of 9 strategies to move the city forward, understanding that there were some structural and very real and long-lasting changes wrought by the COVID-19 impact. Some of those were, shorter-term impacts in terms of how, people using transit downtown and actually coming out and using small businesses. Some of them were really long-term structural impacts, the way we work, right? How often we are in an office and how much office space companies who are headquartered in San Francisco need. Some of those were structural impacts about how we shop. There's been a long-term change as online shopping takes up a greater share of how we purchase. And COVID-19 took a shift that was probably going to take 10 to 15 years to happen and collapsed what was going to happen over that time frame into 2 years. So we saw some real structural impacts in how people shop as well. We've seen a lot of progress. We're about 9 months in from that roadmap's adoption, and I think some really significant changes that we've seen on the clean and safe side are efforts towards creating permanent services and homes for people experiencing homelessness has been dramatic. Obviously, a lot of work to do, but we've increased the number of shelter beds dramatically. We've increased take-up of those beds dramatically, and there's more work to do. On the safety side, I think there's some real exciting things that have happened. We have increased our police pay to be among the highest in the Bay Area, which is a real important thing for recruitment. Police recruitment across the country has been down. And so recruiting the best that we can means we need to give them a high pay set. That's shown returns. We had in August the highest graduating class of recruits that we've seen in 3 years, which is great. And we're seeing returns on the ground. We're seeing 75% decrease in retail thefts. We've seen a 50% reduction in car break-ins, which has been a real quality of life crime that San Francisco has experienced. So there's real progress that we're seeing there on the clean and safe side. But I think one of the things that is important in the mayor's roadmap is that we're not trying to get back to a January 2020 vision of what downtown was. I think COVID showed us that having a downtown that was built primarily on people sitting at a desk working at offices is not the best downtown we can be. And so while there's a little bit of pain in the transition, I think it ultimately is an opportunity to bring new life and 24-hour uses downtown, which is great.
Music and concerts is a great way to bring people from all over the city to a specific location. Golden Gate Park, we've had lots of events in plazas throughout the city. Can you talk a little bit about those and, if there's some upcoming events too?
I think you touched on something that is very key to the mayor's roadmap, right? For San Francisco, and particularly San Francisco's downtown, to move forward and be successful as a great American city, it is about bringing people together because they want to be together, not because they have to be together, right? And music is an incredibly strong part of that. I think the Another Planet concert series that are going to be coming up and happening throughout the city, not just in Golden Gate Park, but in some downtown locations, are a great example of that. There are smaller examples of that as well. The landing at Leidesdorff is a new plaza that we constructed under the mayor's roadmap, where 2 streets were coming together adjacent to a couple of restaurants, closed to cars during daytime hours. There's chairs, there's seating. Frequently throughout the week, they'll have lunchtime and evening music just on a smaller basis to bring people together after work. If they're going to get a drink at a restaurant nearby or sitting outside, they're participating in that. Something we are working on setting up for next year, which is really exciting, is our SF Live program. And that will bring a full 2024 concert series where we are matching local venues who, like Bottom of the Hill, that have a fixed location, bringing their work and their partnership with musicians outside to Union Square, to Civic Center Plaza, to the Embarcadero. So I think earlier in 2024, we'll be able to announce a full concert series happening in outdoor free public plazas through our SF Live Grant Series, which will be really exciting.
I'm looking forward to that. So you just mentioned Vacant to Vibrant. Now, that program has got a lot of attention lately. Can you just talk a little more generally about what exactly that program is?
Yeah. So we opened a program where we put out a call for landlords that were willing to offer their ground floor space for free for a limited 3 to 6 month period, and to small business or storefront operators who had a proposal for what they would do with that storefront for 36 months. Like so many of our things, it's a pilot. We had an incredible amount of interest. We had I'm forgetting the number of landlords, but it was more than we expected, because I think we are in a place where commercial real estate understands that they need to come to the table to help make our ground floor lively, and is resulting in a transition where the ground floor is seen less as a money-making operation, but more as a loss leader for them to lease upper floor. So if you have an active ground floor, you'll do better on the other 80% of your building that you're trying to lease. So that was really great. A lot of cooperation from the landlord, and over 700 small business or other types of operators responded to that call. And so it's a pop-up. We don't, there was no intention that this would result in forever small businesses, but there's certainly a hope. And I think what we're hearing, I don't have the final data yet, but there are 17 activators in 9 different spaces. Some of them are co-located, which is why the difference. And out of those 9 spaces that are being leased for free now, 7 of them are in discussions for long-term leases so that those spaces will continue. So it's the first tranche of the program. We're hopeful to have a second tranche and a third tranche. We're hoping to pilot it in other neighborhoods with other partners. It's not an inexpensive program, unfortunately, because there's a lot of capital that goes into popping something up for that short amount of time. But I think what we've seen from San Franciscans is they've been visiting those businesses. Those businesses are successful, and San Franciscans want to support this kind of activation, so we're hopeful to expand it.
That's great. Can you just talk a bit about why piloting programs and testing things is so important?
Absolutely. And I would say not only are they important generally, but they're important in San Francisco specifically. The benefit of pilot programs, and the reason they're really important here, is it allows us to try something and say there may be consequences, but let's understand those in real time rather than waiting to start a strategy while we think about them on paper. And then if those consequences are too great, we can modify the program as we go. MTA has really absorbed this strategy in a lot of their transportation projects where they have quick build or transitions, whether it's a bike lane or other, to figure out how do we best use this street. Will this way work? Is it working for bicyclists, cars, and buses? Maybe not. Let's switch it around. And pilots have been really important to OEWD, to our office particularly, because we tend to have the ability and the mayor's support through the budget process to pilot things through our request for proposals or our RFP process, where we can put out a small amount of funding, try an activation, try a small public plaza like landing at Leidesdorf, see if it works. And I think the benefit there is if it doesn't work, we tried it, right? And we actually had the benefit of seeing in real time. And when it does work, we're able to uplift that and move that into a permanent strategy. And that is often where our agency kind of turns over something that we've piloted to another agency to implement long-term, because it becomes part of the city's operating procedure. Pilots also, I think, give people hope. So when we have these short-term, whether it's a physical public plaza or an activation like a concert series, those show people that things are possible, that change is possible, and allows them to vote for their feet for what they like.
So lastly, in light of the current AI boom and the recent zoning changes in downtown, do you think there's a way that we can leverage those new changes to take advantage of San Francisco's sort of status as a tech hub?
I do. I think they work together. San Francisco right now has a strong vacancy problem in our office space, right? We and there's a backstory to that. Our zoning downtown has not prevented other uses. It actually, in terms of permitting uses of those, multi-story buildings, has been pretty open, including allowing residential. But we put other barriers in place, cost barriers, code barriers, et cetera. And what happened also during the height of our previous boom is that the amount that tech companies were willing to pay for office space just bid everything out. So we became a little, without intentionally zoning a single-use downtown, we de facto became a little bit of a single-use downtown. And I think that's the opportunity that you're pointing out right now. Because downtown was so vulnerable to work from home, particularly as tech-based as our downtown was, and because of how much money companies really were putting at the top of the market into those office spaces, we're seeing some pretty high vacancy right now, right? Almost 30%. So there's a lot of square feet, but what that does is present a lot of opportunity. We have the ability to absorb expansion of the tech industries that we are so strong at. We've seen over 800,000 square feet of AI space leased just in 2023 alone. And then there's still more demand out in their market, more AI companies looking for space. So that's been a real growth spot in terms of absorbing some of that vacancy. The opportunity too with that vacancy on board is that prices for downtown leases have also dropped, and that opens up opportunity to a breadth of companies that were priced out in 2018, 2019, 2020. San Francisco has always been great at starting nascent companies and allowing them to grow here. When our prices are too high, it prevents that growth. So right now we are a super fertile ground for more startups, for more innovation on the smaller end of the sector, because they can come and enter our market and we have the space to offer. And, to talk about San Francisco's assets and the leveraging of that, I mean, we sit at the epicenter of some really great university and educational institutions. We're right in between UC Berkeley and Stanford. The graduates that are produced just from those institutions alone that stay in the Bay Area and want to rise up and work here provide a real opportunity for those startups to build their companies and for our companies to grow here. So we are confident that we'll absorb a certain amount of that office space with AI tech. With that, we're interested in further increasing our human capital in terms of growing graduates. A downtown university is something the mayor has been open about pursuing, and we're in several conversations both with UC Berkeley, who we would love to have as a partner in our downtown, and then residential conversions are a great partner to that. As we build back our office space, people are going to want to live downtown again, and we have a number of buildings that can be converted into residential. The costs are high. Mayor Breed and her partners on the board have made some significant changes to reduce those costs. We've waived fees for change of uses in the downtown area. There have been code changes that will make those conversions easier. There's a ballot measure on this March ballot that will attempt to reduce costs for those as well. It's an ongoing process. And none of those changes that we've talked about, absent kind of AI growth in downtown, but institutional growth downtown, arts growth downtown, residential conversions downtown, those are all long-term changes. And so one thing I do want to say about that is I do think there's an opportunity per your question, but we also need to be patient, because what we're talking about is a real shift to the makeup of our downtown since, from the growth that it's been starting at pretty much since the turn of the century. And so that is not a 2-year change, that's a 10-year change, and we'll have to watch it as it goes.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending the time with us here today and your creative vision and positivity. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me, and I hope you all go downtown and shop.
And that's it for this episode. We'll be back with another one shortly. For SFGovTV, I'm Chris Manners. Thanks for watching.